My name is Roy Crane, and I'm a retired engineer, and I like to build ship models. And today, the package came with my new winter project. This is a set of plans from A.J. Fisher. Bill Partridge, the owner of A.J. Fisher, is a friend of mine, and I like to do business with his outfit. And this is a brand new model to start working on. We have the A.J. Fisher catalog, and we have an instruction guide for the new boat, which is called the Dancing Feather, a Boston pilot schooner. And then we have the plans. The sail plan, the rigging plan, and the hull sheet. So we'll take a look at these. The instruction guide that I purchased is for a solid hull, and as I show here, this is what would have come with the kit if I'd bought the kit, but I only ordered the plans because I don't want to build a solid hull. I want to build a plank-on-frame version, and we'll be using the hull lines that are described here in the instruction manual to do that. And that will be done instead of the block of wood type of construction here. So to do that, we're going to need the hull sheet, and this is Bill's way of letting you know that these plans are actually copyrighted, and these are actually legitimate plans because they're in red, stamped in red, and not a copy, an illegal copy. So the first thing we're going to be doing is going to be taking this set of plans and using it to loft the frame shapes on top of this plan. To do that, I'm going to want to take it in the other room and set it up on my drawing board so that we can start to loft the frames. Yeah, this area of the basement is where I have my drawing board set up, and the boat that's on here is one that I just finished up. It's a bass boat that I made out of mahogany. We'll probably get a picture of that a little later. But we're going to take this drawing off the board, and we're going to set up the hull lines for the Dancing Feather and start working on lofting the lines. It's a nice little drafting machine that I picked up on eBay. It does a pretty nice job on the size drawings that I need to do, and we'll be using that in a minute. First thing I need to do is get rid of this drawing. So now we need to set up our hull lines. Most of the work we're going to be doing is going to be down in this area here. So we'll try and set that up where it's easy to get to. There's a couple of YouTube channels where fellas are building full-size ships, and one of them in particular is a channel called the Samson Boat Company, in which a fellow by the name of Leo is building an English gaff cutter that is not too dissimilar from what we're doing here. There are some big differences, but what is of interest is that he had to loft all the frames, and being full size, he needed to set up a whole lofting floor in a building so that he could draw the ship full size. Well, the good news for us is this is full size of the model, so that this is as big a drafting floor as I need to do the lofting. And if you're interested in seeing how a real ship would be built, I recommend looking at Leo's videos. He's got over 100 videos out there, and he's still 2 years away from finishing. I think binge watching his videos is certainly a fun way to see how the frames for a ship would be sawn and put together out of pieces that are put together with pegs called tree nails or trummels, and it's an interesting program. Okay, I have taped down an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper on which I am going to draw a template. And this template is going to be a sheet that I can use over and over again, make copies of, to create a separate sheet for each and every frame that we're going to be making. So the first thing I want to do is draw a center line. First, let me make sure I'm lined up with the water lines. Yep, I'm lined up with the water lines. Okay, so now we've got the center line. And now we're going to draw the water lines on. Now the main water line, which is where the boat rides in the water, is this one. And we'll mark that WL. And then below that, the plans show two other water lines. And those are marked B and C on the plans. Okay. Those are the basic layout lines that we'll be drawing the frames off of. So I'm going to now make a set of copies that I can start doing my frame layouts on. Okay, I made a bunch of copies of the template that we're going to be drawing the frames on, and I punched some holes so I can keep them in a notebook. So now what we got to do is determine from the plans where we're going to draw our frames. Now the hull lines here are drawn over bulkheads. And the intention is that you can use these as templates to carve your block wooden hull, single piece solid wooden hull, and use these templates to shape the hull. But we're not doing that, so we're going to be needing to put in frame spacings. And these bulkhead spacings, which are numbered 1 through 11 on the plans, are much farther apart than the frames in the boat would be. And just eyeballing it, because there are no places in the hull line plan here where it's showing stanchions or frames for spacing. So I'm just going to eyeball and say the frames are going to be spaced half the distance between the bulkhead lines that are on the plans. And I'll use those to draw my frames. So that'll be the next thing to do, is to draw in all the frame positions on the plans. Now I'm going to renumber this frame positions along here. I like to start at the midships with the frame number 0 and then count forward on the boat 1 to whatever, and then backwards from midships as we go aft. I like to use the alphabet A, B, C, D, naming each frame, and that makes it easy when I'm looking at the frame sheets to get an idea of where the frame is positioned along the hull. So I'm going to start off with number 0 frame here in the middle of the boat. Okay, I'm going to use this line. That's a terrible pencil. There we go. I'm going to use this line as one face of the frame. Now the frames are going to have thickness to them, so I'm going to have to select a thickness. So if I'd like the frames to come out don't think I want them any bigger than 1/8 inch. Okay, so we're drawing our first frame here, and we're going to split that in half, because the frame's going to be made in 2 layers. And I'm going to name this one 0. So now we can take my first template and line it up on the sheet. I've made some alignment marks here so that I can position it. So, the first point that I want to record is I'm going to bring the frames right up under the cap rail. So the first thing I want to do is put a line in here where the frame meets the cap rail. I'll call that cap rail CR. And this is going to be my number, frame number 0. Okay. So the next thing I'm interested in is where the deck is. So the deck comes across here on the edges. So I'm going to call that DK, deck. And all these lines are already on the sheet. So the next thing I'm interested in is where the rabbit is on the keel. I'll call that R for the rabbit. And then the absolute bottom of the keel. So the keel, shown on the plans, appears to be an 1/8 inch keel. So now we can draw the width of the keel to the rabbit line. So now, before I can really go any further, I really want to draw the keel on the plans here so that I can actually draw the whole center line in. So I'm going to bring the keel up 1/4 inch, 3/8. I think 7/16. See what that looks like. That looks like a good solid keel. And the stem, bring the stem up to here. Then we're going to need to put in a stem knee. I'm going to bring this down. Like so. Okay, I finished marking off frame locations, and starting here at midships, I've designated this one as a 0, 1, 2, 3, going forward to 10, and then going aft I'm using the letters A through I, so that gives us a sum total of 20 frame positions. And so each frame I've drawn is a thickness of roughly 1/8 of an inch. And I've also designed the center line, being a solid hull model. They didn't have the center line defined, so I had to design the center line, the deadwood, and the stern post all had to be drawn in. So I used the plans I had made from the Baltimore Clipper that I built to give myself an idea of what the deadwood might look like. And when I constructed so that the frames sit on top of the keel, and then there's a strip of wood on top of that, and that sandwiches the frames in between the keel and this shoe that comes along over the top of them. And it makes a nice rigid assembly of frames to the keel. So that's what we're planning on doing with that. And now, of course, you have to carry the frames down into the water lines so that we can pick off the distances for each water line from the center line, and that'll help us loft our frames. So that's where we are. So the next thing I'm going to have to do is start lofting the frames. Okay, so I'm ready to start drawing my first frame. I've put down that this is frame number 0, which is a midships, and I'm going to start picking off dimensions from the waterline drawing. First, I'm going to transfer across the top of the keel. And this will be the rabbit one. So then I'll start right at the waterline itself. And I'm going to draw the intersection with the waterline. Like so. And then we'll move to the next one. Okay, so now what we're left with is to connect the dots. Okay, so that is the outer edge of the midship frame. So now we gotta guess where the inside edge would be, and I'm going to bring it in across here and make a bridge where the floors would be in the ship. If you look at the tally-ho video, when they put the floors in, they made them out of brass, and they attached the ribs to the keel with brass floors. On this one, I'm going to make the floors an integral part of the frame and bridge it across the keel that way. Anyhow, I'll turn this off for a second and we'll draw on the inside. Well, we just had a delivery from Amazon. I'm going to open this up. It's a tripod that I ordered so that we'll have a little bit more flexibility with where we can position the video camera and filming these. Up until now, I've been using the one that's attached to this now, which is been good for certain things, but it's a little small, as you can see. So I think we're going to need something a little bigger than that. So open this up and we'll see what we got. Well, we got a box in a box, and then a bag in the box, followed by the new tripod. So we'll put this together and set it up, see how it works. So at this point, I've managed to draw the first 5 frames, and I've included the deck beam, and that'll show me where I have to put the deck beam shelves in when I can mark them on the frames. The way I like to keep track of which frames I've already drawn is I use a highlighter, and I highlight yellow the frames that I've already drawn. So we have drawn frames 0 through 4 so far. Okay, at this point I've lofted all the frames starting at frame number 0 midships and going forward to frame number 10. And they're all highlighted in yellow, showing those have all been drawn. Now we're going to be lofting the frames starting at 0 in the first alphabetic character A through I are going to be the frames going aft. And the frames going aft are going to be a little tricky because, as you can see here, the bulwarks start to slope inward at this line coming up through the frames. So the frames come across and then up, across and then up. So this line is going to be something I want to define. So I've drawn it across from these intersection points and then connected these lines going up through here, which would kind of give me an idea of where that runs on the side view. And it starts to show itself at the midships, and then it becomes fainter. It becomes a little faint and then stronger and stronger. It turns more and more as it goes aft until it comes to the stern itself, which comes up at the very end of the boat. So those will be the frames we're going to do next. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up the tripod to see if I can capture this area so that you can see as I pick off the points on the frames how I'm doing that, which I don't think was very clear when I first did these. Okay, we're going to start lofting frame A. Then I transfer a line across that's at the very top of the frame under the cap rail. And then the next line I want is at the top of the deck shelf. This is the line that the deck would sit on. Then I come down And I'm going to pick up the top of the keel, then the rabbet line where the frames will come in, the planking will come in at the rabbet line, and then the bottom of the keel. And we draw the keel in. So then we've got everything that we need. I get out my dividers and I set them on the center line. And the frames have an angle on them. As the planking goes aft, the angle gets steeper and steeper. So what I do is I pick the side that has the most length to it, and then we'll fair in the frames with sanding blocks afterwards. So that'll give us something we can take away by having the largest dimension on there. We can form those angles later. So now the water line on this one actually comes out beyond the top of the frame at the rail. So I'm going to do the water line first. And I'll poke a hole just above the water line so that I can see it. And then we'll move in on the back side of the frame again. And this time we're going to pick up the rail. So we have some tumble home already because the rail sits inward of the water line. Then we go to station B. Then we pick up station C. Now I like to take a pencil, just mark a little tick mark from the holes. And our frame has to pass through all those points. So now we start with the French curve, see what we can do to come close to connecting the dots here. And this first one's going to be very difficult. It's a tight curve. So the most I can connect here are three points. I'm only going to draw that down to the next mark because we're going to want to blend it as we go. Try to get 3 points lined up. See if I can get the line to fair in with the next 3. I'll come down one more line. Then we got to get down to the rabbet. The inside of the frame is a complete fako, so I try to get close to where I was and then move over a little bit. And I want to start at the top and taper it to a larger. Stronger piece inside. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with the planking as we go aft. And everything folds up around this bulwark that's tipped outwards. We're going to have to shape the planking in the back. I'm going to have to make some paper patterns or something to fit the planks in there. Anyhow, that's frame A. Okay, I'm going to do frame B next. And before I do B was originally number 7 on the plans. So if I come over here and find number 7 on the plans, that's this one here. So if I take the center line out to where the turn of the bulwarks is, at position 7, I can come over here at position 7 and put that on here. And that's a point right at the water line. Let me get a highlighter out here, and we're going to mark A as having been completed. The line, the top of the frames, just under the cap rail. Get the line just under the planking, the deck planking. This is the line where the bulwarks turn. This is the top of the keel. It's the rabbet. And the bottom of the keel. Get the keel cross section in. Mark this frame B. And we get our divider, and the turn of the bilge is right here. And not bilge, the turn of the bulwarks is right there. Okay, now we can come down here. And we'll grab the water line. There you go. So now we get the turn of the bulwark started, and we've got the shape of the hole below that. And I'm using 24-inch radius. I have a nice set of radius gauges that I came onto quite a long time back. So I just pick one by eye that looks right for the scale, and then I run that through the lines where the deck beam would attach to the frames. And that's going to tell me where my deck shelf will be, which will be right in here, which makes sense when you see the turn now. That would be your deck shelf. Okay, so that's frame number B. We'll just go onwards from there. Well, we finished lofting all the frames, and I've laid them all out here so that we can kind of see the progression. Starting here at the stem, coming towards the midships. This one's going to get a little funky out at the stern because we run out of thickness here. So I'm going to have to put in the covering board, waterway covering board, whatever you want to call it. Maybe cut these pieces off and glue them in on top of the deck, between the deck and the rail, so that they're really not connected as a direct piece of the frame itself. The frames in the stem and the stern are actually two pieces, one on either side of the stem post in this case, and then eventually they tie together and become a single unit for the rest of it until we get back up here, and then we end up with two pieces again, one on either side. The turn of the bulwarks starts at the zero frame midships. It starts to turn right here on the A-frame. It's really the first frame where you start to see an inward turn of the bulwarks, and then you can really see it here. And it turns inward, and then it starts playing outwards as we go closer to the stern. Those inward pieces actually turn outwards. This one looks a little suspect. I may have to go back in and check the width across the top here, because here it's starting to turn outwards, and here, this one looks like it's gone inwards again, which doesn't look right. So I'll be checking that, and you can see it's outwards here, outwards here. The further to the stem, to the stern we get, the more outward the bulwarks are. So now that we've got that done, we're going to want to move on to lofting the center line of the boat, which consists of the stem. And well, let's go look at the drawing. We'll take a look at it. So I said we're going to have to loft the center line, including the stem. It's actually all drawn here. I've already lofted it into where I think it's going to want to go. And so we got the deadwood in the stern post, and then we have a keel that runs all the way up here, and then we have a stem knee, and the stem itself is going to be made out of a couple pieces to get the curve into it. It's going to be kind of funky where the spar comes through the front, because the spar is actually wider than the keel at that point, and it's going to take a little bit of finagling to work around that. So I think the stem is actually going to come up short of the spar. The spar will sit on top of it, and then we'll have to plank into the spar, I think. Anyhow, we're going to figure that out as we go. So I said we have to loft it. We don't actually have to loft it. What I want to do is trace it from here so that I have a pattern that is just the center line and that I can use to cut the wood out. I'm trying something a little different here. This is called the rabbet, and the rabbet is cut in to the keel above this line, is cut away the thickness of the planking so that the planking would sit on the rabbet all the way along here. And up until now, when I've done that, I've actually made the keel full width and then carved the rabbet in. On this one, I'm going to play a game with it and see how it works out. I'm going to make the keel a little narrower than I would, and then I'm going to glue cheeks on it on either side for the rabbet. So this piece of the rabbet from here down will actually be glued to the narrower keel, bringing the keel out to its full width, and that'll give a ledge for the planks to sit on, is the rabbet. And the same thing down along the stern post. The rabbet comes up here like that. So see how that works out. Well, I've drawn the center line of the boat, including the stem knee, stern post, rudder, deadwood, and I've worked this out so I got a couple of scarf joints in here. Try and tie that together a little stronger than just end grain. Going up end grain is a weak joint. And we've got the rabbet line drawn in. As I said, I'm going to laminate that on as a separate layer, just as something to try different. This time around, we'll see how that goes. So the next piece of work will be to use this as a pattern and cut out the center line. If you remember, I saw when we spread the plans out that the angle of the bulwarks on one of the frames didn't look correct. So it turned out to be letter E was not correct. And when I checked the drawings, what I had wrong is this point at the turn of the bulwarks. I had too wide, and now I've corrected it and redrawn the plan, bringing that in. You can see the angle on the bulwarks here is inward, and here it's slightly outward, which is where it should be. So glad we picked that up and fixed the profile of that. It would have stuck out like a sore thumb when I went to put the boat together. Okay, I think what I'd like to do is show where I learned to do the lofting from the ship's hull lines to the full frames. And I'm going to go in here. When I added on to the house, this opening was a bulkhead to the outdoors. And when I put the addition on, I gave myself some more headroom by digging the floor deeper in this part of the basement. So we're now entering my man cave. And over here is a model I did of the Blue Nose. And that model is built the way we're going to be building this one. She's built from scratch. And this is a scrapbook that I created. And you can see here's a sawn frame. And here's a fixture that I made to put the frames together, which we'll be doing for this. And it all goes together to form a boat. And the thing I like about it is on this side, the hull is finished. It looks very nice. And if we want to take the time to turn the boat around, you're going to find out that the other side of the boat is not planked from the waterline down, so that you can see the construction. If I get the shine off of this thing, you get to see the construction of the boat. Here's maybe a better picture of it. Get an idea of what the boat would look like as it was being built. So how did I learn to do that? I learned to do that from a book here that I downloaded off the internet. And it's a practicum on the schooner Bluenose that is based on a set of plans that I bought from P.F. Eisner, but the practicum is by Gene Bodner, rather. And this is, I downloaded this whole thing. It's quite a book, and it's one of the best sources of how to do things building a ship model that I've seen. And it goes through all kinds of stuff. But chapter 2, if I can find where it starts, is the lofting of your own plans for the Bluenose. And it goes through the whole process that I've been showing for the Dancing Feather. Some of my printer ink isn't the best. And it starts to show you how to do all your lofting. But beyond that, it goes on and gives you instructions on how to build the assembly jigs and all kinds of construction details. And as you get farther into it, he even shows you how to build your own dead eyes and blocks for fitting, that kind of stuff, which is more than I like to do. But it's really a great information source for building any kind of model, whether it's plank on frame or not. So the way to find that is if you Google Bluenose Practicum Standard.pdf, it's a free download. And you don't have to print it out if you don't want to. You can save it as a PDF and look at it on the screen. But I recommend anybody with interest that they go look at Gene Bodner's Practicum.